Hey everybody, I'm out here in nature again, enjoying the gorgeous weather. It's so warm today, it's about 60 degrees and I couldn't resist coming out here. This is one of my favorite places in my neighborhood. I'm very close to where I live, I'm only a few blocks. Even though it's a park, there's a lot of wilderness here, which I really like. I like to come out here and just sit here and enjoy the gorgeous trees and all the wildlife that I keep seeing. I've seen birds, I've seen squirrels, I've seen rabbits. I'm sure there are other critters, but they probably come out at night. But anyway, here I am in this gorgeous park, and I know you're here for a tutorial. We're going to jump right into it in a few moments. We're going to be doing a gorgeous bracelet set. It's a stretch bracelet set, okay? And I'm going to be using the beads from the Curated Bead box for the month of February. Now, if you're not familiar with the Curated Bead box, I'll go ahead and leave a link down below. And today's tutorial is going to be super easy, okay? I know my last one was easy as well. I don't mind doing easy tutorials. I enjoy doing them. Plus, I feel like I'm helping out the beginners. But even if you're advanced, I'm hoping that perhaps I'll give you some tips. I know I always get tips whenever I go visit other people's videos. You can never stop learning. I always feel like there are new ways to do things. I think when I do complicated tutorials, it excludes a lot of people, especially those of you who aren't familiar with certain techniques. But anyway, just because it's easy doesn't mean you can't learn from it, okay? Everybody has a different technique with stretch bracelets, and I'm going to show you my technique. I have to hold the camera out in front of me because I forgot to bring my selfie stick. I hope it's not too shaky. So obviously I'm not in the studio. I had to make the tutorial ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and insert it here, and let's go ahead and get started. Here's the box. As you can see, the name of the box is Celebration. Let's go ahead and take out the beads that we're going to be using. We're definitely going to be using these ones here. These are the duo style beads. I love the colors in these beads, and like I've said many times before, they look like gemstones even though they're not. We're also going to be using these faceted beads in this milky white color. We're going to be using these yellow ones as well. I don't think I'm going to use too many of these, but I definitely want to use at least one of them as a focal bead. And I also want to use these beautiful spaces. Okay, these are the rhinestone spaces. And for today's project, we're going to be using some stretch cord. So let me just go ahead and open up this binding starter kit. Here's the stretch cord. And that's it from this box. Let me go ahead and put it away. Now I've already played around with these beads a little bit, so I have some idea of what we're going to be doing. I want to make 2 stretch bracelets and I want them to coordinate. So I'm going to be working with these beads in different ways. I'm going to create different bead patterns, but I want to make sure that the 2 bracelets coordinate. Here are the rhinestone spacer beads. I'm going to be using my magic rods, and I carry these in my Etsy store. I use these quite a bit to create bead patterns. I've gotten so used to using them that I can't seem to create anymore without them. But you don't have to use these, okay? You can just use your mat or use a beading board. Let me go ahead and remove some beads. I really don't think I'm going to use that many. I may just use 1 or 2 of these, but I put out 6 just in case. I'm definitely going to use a lot of these, okay? So let me just pull off a few here. This should be enough to get me started. Let me go ahead and put some of these here as well. And by the way, these are 10mm in size, and both of these are 8mm, and these rhinestone spacer beads are 6mm in diameter. So I'm going to start with a focal bead, and I'm going to use one of these. I love these. I think these are so unique. And I'm just going to bring it to the center of my rod like this. Now, as far as the length of the bracelet, it all depends on the kind of beads you use. If you use bigger beads, you're going to need more space because the beads take up space. So what I recommend that you do is arrange a length that's between 6.5 and 7.5 inches, depending on how big your wrist is, okay? And then you can make adjustments. I normally don't tie it off in a knot until I put it around my wrist to see how it feels, okay? Because like I said, it all depends on the beads. If you have smaller beads, you don't have to worry about it so much, but the bigger beads do take up space and your bracelet will end up being tighter, okay, if that makes any sense. So anyway, let's go ahead and start with this center bead, and now I'm going to add some of these. I've already kind of looked at these a little bit and have some idea of what I'm going to do, okay. So let's do 4 on this side. Let me go ahead and put a stopper on this end so I don't lose my beads. And I'm going to flip the rod around and put 4 on this side. And let's take a look. It looks okay, but I'm not so sure about having 4 of these darker ones. I think I'll remove one and just have 3 on each side. Let me put a stopper on. I always put the stoppers on because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've lost my beads. So if you have these rods, it's a good habit to get into, okay? Let me remove one from this side now. And I think that looks a little bit better. And now I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to use one of these milky white beads. I'm going to add one of these rhinestone spacer beads on each end to dress it up a little bit. And that looks really nice. I like that. So let me go ahead and put my stopper on, and I'll do the same thing on the other end. And let's see what we have so far. That looks good. The reason I'm doing it like this, I load one side first and then the other side, is because I'm trying to figure out what bead pattern to use in order to get the length that I want, okay? Believe it or not, it's not that easy to create bead patterns on a stretch bracelet, okay? It may seem like it may be easy, but it really isn't. You have to actually put a lot of thought behind it to make sure that your bead pattern is symmetrical, okay? So now I think what I'll do is add 3 more of these darker ones and see what that looks like. And I think that looks really nice. And now I think I'm going to add one of these spacer beads and one of these milky white beads and another spacer bead to finish this side. Okay, let me put a stopper on. And now I'll go to this side and repeat it. And that looks really, really cute. Let me put my stopper back on, and I'm going to measure this. One of the nice things about these rods is that you can slide these stoppers up close to the beads, bring everything together, and that way you can get an accurate measurement. So it looks like it measures 5 3/4 inches, but I feel like I need to add something to this bead. It looks a little bit naked. I feel like I need to add some bead caps to this. And the reason I'm saying that is because I feel like I need to add some gold to it to tie it into these rhinestone spacer beads, okay, because these are gold. So let me go see if I can find some bead caps. Here's one of the previous boxes. I believe this was the August box. As you can see, it's called Sizzling Summer. And as you can see, there are some bead caps there. So let me go ahead and pull them out. These right here. I'm only going to need 2. So here's my 2. And so now what I'm going to do is offload these beads from this side. And now I'm going to slide on one of these bead caps. And then the bead. And the other bead cap. And that looks a little bit better, I think. Let me load these other beads back on. And I think this looks much better now because the gold bead caps tie in with the gold rhinestones. So it coordinates a little bit better. Let me put my stopper on and I'm going to measure it now because I think those bead caps make a little bit of a difference. Not too much because they're thin, but we'll have a look. So it's a little bit more than 5 3/4 now. So now I need to decide what I need to add to make it longer for myself. And I think what I'm going to do is add more of these dark beads, okay? So I think what I'll do is add them to one end. I'll just add them to this end here. I'm going to add 4 and I'll measure it and see how long it is. Let me put my stopper back on. It measures a little bit short of 7 inches, and I think I'm going to leave it like this. It may be a little bit too big for my wrist, but I'll probably end up giving this bracelet away. But anyway, guys, as you can see, I have this one in the middle. Then I have 4 sets of these 3, and this is going to go in the middle of the back of the bracelet, if that makes any sense. You'll see in a few moments when I thread everything on what I'm talking about, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and put this one off to the side, and now we're going to work on the next bracelet. The goal is to make it the same length as this one, okay? And I want to use the same beads, and I like the idea of putting spacer beads to highlight single beads, but I only have 2 of these left. So let me go into one of the other boxes. I think we had a box, I believe it was the January box that had rhinestone spacer beads. Let me go see if I can find them, and I'll be right back. Here's the box. The name of it was Sparkle and Shine. Let's take a look. Yep, here they are. They look a little bit smaller than the other ones, but they'll work because they're gold and they're clear crystals as well. So we're going to use these. Let me pour them out. So let's go ahead and start with 3 of these dark ones. And I'm going to add a spacer bead on each end. Let me go ahead and add another one on this end now. So this bracelet isn't going to have a focal, okay? It's just going to have a bead pattern. So let me go ahead and add 3 of these faceted milky white beads and see how that looks. And we can add a spacer bead. And that looks really nice. I like that. So now let me continue the pattern and add some dark beads, 3 of them. And a spacer bead. It looks nice, I really like it, but I feel like I need to make it a little bit more interesting. So I think what I'll do is maybe have 1 dark bead and a spacer bead. And then 3 of these milky white ones. See how that looks? I think that looks really nice. Let me go ahead and add 3 of these now. And I really like that. I don't know if this is going to be the final pattern, but I'm going to continue loading this pattern until I get a decent length that I can measure, okay? And since I already know how long this one is, all I have to do is hold this one up to that one to see what I need to add. Let me go ahead and add another single bead. So I'm getting there, but I still need to add some more, as you can see, okay? This is a process, guys, okay? It's a process that you just have to go through. You have to experiment, load and unload your bead patterns. That's why I like the rods. Before I came up with the rods, I used to just use beading wire, and that was a pain. Okay, so let's take a look now and see what we need to do here. As you can see, I still need to add something else. So I'm not sure if this is going to work. I'm going to have to rethink this now, okay? Like I said before, it's a process. So I think what I'm going to do is play around with this a little bit more until I get the right combination and until I get the right length. And instead of boring you with all of that, I'm going to speed up the film. So you'll get to see the process a little bit, but it'll be sped up. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I have 2 bracelets that are identical in length, okay? And as you can see, I did switch around my bead patterns a little bit, and I did add a focal section. I wasn't going to do it at first, but then after playing around a little bit, trying to get the right length, I decided to add this section here. So anyway, I think this is going to work just fine. I think it looks really cute. So now that we've finished this part, we're going to go ahead and load them onto some stretch cord. One thing I wanted to point out to you, I had 2 rhinestone spacer beads left over from the February box, and they were slightly bigger than the ones from the January box. So if you'll notice with this sequence here, I added the 2 large ones at each end, okay, to kind of frame this section here a little bit, all right? And the other reason I did that is because I didn't have enough of the smaller ones. That's the only reason I did that, okay? You just have to compromise whenever you can, all right? So let's go ahead and get the stretch cord. Let me go ahead and pull out the stretch cord. As you can see, the stretch cord is really thick, so you can use this on really heavy beads. But since this is what came in the kit, we're going to go ahead and use it on these beads, okay? And I recommend that you cut yourself a decent length, okay? So if your bracelet is 7 inches, I recommend that you cut yourself at least 11 inches, so 2 inches extra on each end, okay? Let's go ahead and measure it out. I'm going to go ahead and cut myself 12 inches just to make sure, okay? I recommend that if you're a beginner, guys, okay, to cut yourself a decent length, okay? Don't be struggling with cord that's too short. So there's one. And here's my other one. Now, before you start, you should stretch it out, okay? And you don't want to overdo it, but you definitely want to give it a little stretch, because if you don't do that and you string your beads, what happens is the weight of the beads will eventually stretch out the stretch cord, okay? So you want to pre-stretch it before you load your beads on. There's one. And let me go ahead and stretch this one now. That's good enough. You're going to need a bead stopper or some kind of clip. I like to use these clips. I got these on Amazon, really cheap. They're office clips. So you want to put it at the end so you don't lose your beads, okay? And we're going to go ahead and load this one first. So you simply offload from the rod directly onto your stretch cord. And usually I like to offload several at the same time, but stretch cord moves around too much. It's not stiff enough, okay? If I was using beading wire, I could do that, but stretch cord is a little tricky. So with stretch cord, I usually just do one at a time like this. And if I'm using stretch cord that's really thin, I have a different method. It's a method where I'm using file line and a needle to thread through the beads. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to see the videos, but I have made videos on it. So I'm just going to continue to thread these until I get to the end. Okay, as you can see, I finished loading the beads. And now what you want to do, guys, is you want to bring the beads together like this and test it to see if it's the right length. And I think it's going to be fine. Like I said before, this one's not going to be for me. I'm going to give this one away, and it's about 7 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and knot it off now. Now the knot is actually going to sit inside the concave space of the spacer bead, okay? This is the perfect place for hiding a knot, and that's why I wanted to have the focal at the end with the spacer bead, okay? If you had beads that had large holes, you could also hide the knot inside the hole. But since this cord is so thick, it's not going to be possible, because once we do the knotting, the knot's going to be way too big to fit inside these holes. So we're just going to simply hide it inside the concave space of this spacer bead, okay? So let me go ahead and show you the steps. You want to do an overhand knot first, just a regular overhand knot, and bring the beads close together like this. You don't want to do it too tight, because then the bead will go inside the knot, and you don't want that. So just do a very easy overhand knot like this. And now we're going to do a square knot, okay? So right over left like this. And pull. You want to make sure that you pull it so the beads come close together. And now that you've done that, you're going to go left over right and go under and pull. I pull the 2 tails, and then I also pull the actual bracelet cord, okay? And now I'm going to do another overhand knot, just a simple overhand knot on top of that, and pull. Make sure the knot is nice and small, okay, but you don't want to pull it too much because the cord will snap. And now, as you can see, the knot is sitting inside that concave space, and that's what you want. But before we cut off the ends, we're going to add some glue, okay? I like to use GS Hypo Cement, and the reason I like to use this is because it has a thin applicator. So we're going to squeeze a little bead out, just like that. I don't know if you guys can see that. Very small, okay? And then just place it on the knot. You don't need a whole bunch, you just need a little tiny bit. Okay? And let it dry. So while this is drying, we're going to go ahead and work on this one now. Once again, you want to add a clip on one end. We've already stretched it, so you don't have to worry about that part. And now I'm going to remove a stopper very carefully. And whenever I do this, guys, if you own a rod, just make sure you hold on to the other end like I am, okay? Because there are times when these little stoppers will slide out and you don't want to lose the beads from this end, okay? So you need to be careful with that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and load these beads just like I loaded the other one, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video so I don't bore you to death. Okay, as you can see, I finished loading this one now. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to knot it again, all right? So once again, you want to do just a regular overhand knot. And I usually go behind like this and pull. Bring your beads close like this. And now you're going to do right over left. And pull. Bring everything together like this. So you want to pull the tails and this portion of the bracelet, okay? And now we're going to go left over right, like this, and pull. And now I'm going to do another overhand knot, just a simple overhand knot on top of that, and pull. Make sure it's nice and tight, but you don't want it too tight, okay, because you don't want to distort the shape of your bracelet, all right? Once again, we're going to add some glue, just a little dab on the knot. You don't want too much, okay? And you really don't need the glue, but it's just there for insurance, just to make sure it doesn't come apart. A square knot is very strong, so the chances of it coming apart are very slim, okay? So while that's drying, let's go ahead and snip off this one, the tails. So I'm going to snip one at a time, okay, just to make sure that I get as close as I can to that knot without cutting the knot. Just like that, okay? You don't even see where the knot is. So there's one. I'm going to pretend this one is dry and go ahead and cut it. So here are my two bracelets, and aren't they cute? I love how they coordinate. You can wear both. You can wear one at a time. As you can see, each one has a focal section, okay? And if you need to add or subtract beads, you should do it from that section, okay? Or from this section here. This one has 4, whereas these have 3, okay? If I wanted to make this one bigger, for instance, I could have 5 instead of 4. Same thing with this one. Instead of having 6, I could have 7, okay? Or if you wanted to make it smaller, you could have 5 of these instead of 6. So that's one way to adjust bracelets like these guys so that they're identical. But it's definitely helpful to have rods or a beading board to make sure you can achieve 2 equal lengths, okay? And another tip, guys, if you make these for yourself or you give them away, you should advise the recipient on how to put them on, okay? And the reason I'm saying that is because this one has bead caps, and sometimes the bead caps will cut into the stretch cord. So the best way to put these on is to roll them on like this, okay? And that way you won't put any strain on the stretch cord. But look how gorgeous these are, guys. Oh my gosh, look how pretty. They're so pretty. I love these. And I like it that I have 6 of these here. And the reason I like that is because this large bead sits nestled in between these two here. So that's another thing you should consider, okay, when you're making these bracelets. Let me show you what I mean. So because I have an even number here, when I put these two on, this large bead sits in between these two, okay? It's kind of nestled in there. It just makes it so that they sit better up against each other. But anyway, I'm really happy with these. I think they turned out really cute. And I love the combination of this dark green and the milky white beads. And the yellow bead definitely adds a little pop. And it's very interesting to look at because it has that abstract design on it. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me go ahead and put this away and I'll come back and say goodbye. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I meant to take the bracelets with me on this walk and I completely forgot because I was going to model them for you. But this is the first time that I'm making a tutorial where I'm not modeling my jewelry, so I apologize for that. So to make up for it, I'll just go ahead and insert some more footage here at the end so you can take another look at it. So anyway, guys, I'm so glad you were able to join me today. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Bye.